What is going on, guys? Welcome into Frogs and Friends Roundtable. We got with us here a bunch of frogs. We got Adam, we got Meta, and we also had Gmoney. What's going on, my guys?
What's
Up?
up? Fourth of July
What's
week.
up?
Let's go.
Yeah,
Shadalay,
yeah,
Shadalay.
good stuff. Yeah, we'll jump into July 4th stuff, and possibly a very good weekend ahead for us. But we'll kind of tamper the expectations as well. But first and foremost, we did talk last week in last week's roundtable. We pulled up some of G Money's posts and stuff about the White House post and like Q, quantum, and all the parallels to obviously the Q board and Q post and stuff. So, G Money, did you kind of want to jump in here? I'll throw it to you here first on some of the stuff that was released last week as far as like the quantum and Q connection. Is that kind of really kind of just telling us, hey, you know, Q is a quantum computer? Or, can you kind of give us like what your take was last week?
Yeah, I think the biggest take I took from it all is that Bitcoin is the quantum dominance. It's not like I think quantum is coming, but again, if you follow the Jason Lowery stuff, right, you can't compute your way around energy. And so, look, the nuance with the Satoshi coins and being able to break those eventually, yeah, perhaps. But that's still a very long way out into the future. But I think the main thing is that Bitcoin is quantum dominance, right? That is the quantum dominance because no matter what happens, like they won't be able to dominate Bitcoin with quantum computers. And I think that's the real takeaway. But I think the funny overlying like aspect of this is like this space has become so insufferable, you guys. Like, I
Oh
don't
God.
know. I got to be honest. I don't know if I'd still be into Bitcoin if it wasn't for the Q stuff. Like to me,
hmm
I'm actually surprised that a lot of these pointers still hanging on because it's like psyop is so deep right now. Like I'm even like being like, wow, like they're really taking this to the nth degree because like without the Q like framing for any of this, like dude, I'd be out, man. I got to be honest, dude. I don't think
Hmm.
I'd still be in this. I would have chased I would have chased other stuff. And I would have been probably like hiding in my room with gold and my ammunition like at the side of the bed, right? Like, I mean, that's honestly like I don't see how some of these guys are still hanging on to be quite honest with you.
Hmm.
Well, you
That's a
know,
good point.
I absolutely agree with you, and I don't really like to, I try to spend as little time on X or like. There's so much good information and there's so much stuff I want to know, but this is like comparable to finding out all the statists and like absolute tyranny that was rampant during COVID. But like this is like a whole new level of like finding out who the statists are. Like that's another big part of it because if you cut through a lot of shit that's going on right now and the whole BIP 110 argument and then there's talk about slaying your heroes. There are people that and I just don't think I think if you don't have all of the information, you're making that decision or you're making that call. And there are people I truly respect that, but I just don't think they fully understand what Bitcoin is. And I don't think I do either, for the record, but I don't think all it is money. I think that's really foolish. And I think your point, G, I caught one of your posts that, like, why do people put so much emphasis on money on a future that likely money loses its importance in, and I don't know how to
Yeah.
frame that. And it's really hard to explain that to people, but I hear what you're saying that it's getting just insufferable. The arguing and the infighting literally all feels like a psyop.
Hmm.
Yeah, and also to add on that, like, the drop in price, which makes no sense, right? The fundamentals make no sense. The fork, which is, makes no sense. Like a lot of this stuff is, I think, being pushed by the algos. I think it's giving them a false sense of like, winning when in reality, because if you look at the BIP 10 stuff, it's all being freaking throttled. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of weird that like all those posts are getting so much, and I don't think it's all natural. Um, but it all comes back to the fact like this had to be centrally kind of imposed on people because look at what we're doing to ourselves. Like we're fighting
Mhm.
over the stupidest shit. Like there's no coalition. Nobody's using the fucking network, guys. I hate to break it to you, but like the network's dead. And that's why, like, people go, well, it's supposed to be like, dude, this would have never worked, man, if we just would have let the plebs and everybody like go along with their own little ideas. And that's why Trump, this is why the military, this is why it's so important for them to put these like like remember playing bumpers like when you were a kid where you go to like the bowling alley,
Yeah.
right? Like you could go back and forth, but you never throw a gutter ball. And like I think that's what they've done, right? Like they've been like, hey guys, like we're gonna go down this path. you can bump around a little bit, but like no gutter balls. Like the gutter balls is where we all lose. And that's just kind of goes to show you like how insufferable it is because nobody can agree on anything. The movement, like, dude, 42 people supported the Julian Assange movie that was like dedicated to
That
Bitcoiners.
is
Like what?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what? 42 people? Like Jack? I mean, Jack was part of it, but like, where's Jeff Booth? Where's Michael Saylor? Where's freaking Max Kaiser? Like, what are we doing, man? It's almost to the point where it's like, dude, did we pick the wrong sim? Like, is this the one where we actually lose? Like, well, what timeline are
No,
we on? No, no,
no.
I know, but it honestly it feels that way in some sense of it, because it's
Mhm.
just like I said, it's just insufferable. But that's again why the central dominance through quantum, through AI, through Bitcoin, through Elon, like we had to dominate this stuff because otherwise, this Bitcoin 10 stuff is exactly what you would have got in a completely decentralized fucking mess
Yeah.
because everybody has their head up their ass.
That's a
Hey,
good point.
It reminds
what
me.
we are just a heads up though, G. I hear you on network usage, although I do have a couple things to chime in on. Maybe we can talk about a little bit later regarding Aqua Wallet and some of the other capabilities on Breeze. But hash rates it's been pretty high lately. I mean, we're at 968 today, but we were at Zetahash level just a couple days ago. So there's some power. There's still some serious power going into this thing. And then you weren't here a couple weeks ago, but there was that episode where we were talking about. I keep forgetting the gentleman's name, but he was talking about the very real load balancing mechanism that the Bitcoin mining and essentially what they're calling it is what did they call it? ASICs grid stabilization technology because Bitcoin's got such a bad, in Europe it's like that the communists hate it,
Mm.
but it's stabilizing the grid because of all the varied um, they have wind and solar and all these like variable inputs on the grid that cause a lot of strain on it. So they can just spin up the ASICs miners when they need to absorb the load and turn them off when they need the power to go to the demand. So
Yeah.
maybe one day Europe will have air conditioning units.
Well, Meta, let me add on to that point as far as like the BIP 110 stuff, like, because obviously everyone who's on BIP 110 is looking at it only as money. But I
Yeah,
guess, like, and everyone else kind of looking at it as like Bitcoin is the weapon, and there's multiple other very important aspects to uh Bitcoin. And obviously, like we talked about the past few weeks, like the energy grid, very important as far as Bitcoin, as people recognizing how important Bitcoin is, and also the cybersecurity and plenty of other things as well that are just as important as the money aspect of Bitcoin. So I guess what I'm trying to say is with the BIP 110, do you think it's a good teaching lesson here that we're going to see within the next month for a lot of these people to be like, okay, maybe Bitcoin is more than just money? Like, do you think that's kind of a X factor here with this fork war, if you will?
I I don't know. I have no idea how it's gonna become. I mean, I can speculate. I don't know,
Mhm.
gee, if you have a thought about that, but I've thought about the whole idea. I can't remember who said it. It was like over a year ago before Trump was elected. That Walker. It was Walker, and he said that somebody he knew had gotten a call from Trump, and he was basically shilling Bitcoin to him, and that said it was the next oil.
Well, that was
And
actually, I think that was actually Peter McCormick before
was it Peter McCormick?
yeah,
Okay,
it was Peter McCormick, yeah, that was talking about that. But that was at the
yeah,
Nashville conference,
okay,
yeah.
okay. So then I started thinking of that in relation to the ability of sort of if you picture in your mind a teeter totter, and on one side you essentially have raw energy and you have compute for AI and you have um, hash power, and that uh, the more sort of capacity you have for hash power is directly correlated to the amount of power projection via AI compute and all of the things it enables, right? Autonomous robots, drones, everything you need to project kinetic power via AI. Those two things, the mechanism for how they relate feels to me when I picture that, it feels like it's a teeter totter, like it's a balance, right? Like you draw down, you shut off A6 miners, or you turn the knob down, and then that you redirect raw energy into the actual AI processors, and they do their thing. That is, to me, that's what makes sense, tying it back to that comment that Peter McCormick made about Trump, that there is something there that is not fully realized as far as how is Bitcoin an actual commodity, and more than just money. And it's really this thing that has all of these different characteristics, which is incredible if you really sit down and think about it. Which clearly there's a some said this, I think on the last discussion, that the level of elegance in the engineering of the technology, and maybe I'm just like blowing smoke up my own ass because maybe I need to understand things better, but what it's feeling like, and then tying it back to software and all the things that Lowry talks about, it really does seem like that it's starting to come into focus as far as like specifically how it's going to play the role that I think we've all talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just add that it's kind of sad because we're actually going to lose some good Bitcoiners through this, because a lot of reputable people have put their reputation on the line to back this, and so they're going to get humbled, unfortunately. But like, fortunately for us, like we get to move forward with a immutable data system that we can use as money, or we use anything else. But the other part of that, though, is like, and this is why I think Jeff gets it so wrong, because he's actually contradictory when he says he's running nuts, because he talks about the price of tomorrow, and he talks about the ever deflationary environment, which AI will bring us, and quantum and all these other things. And so if you keep like pulling that thread, the only way for all that productivity to actually flow directly back to humanity is to encapsulate the equities market, our capital markets, with thermodynamics. Okay. Otherwise, that entropy is always going to leak out of that system. And so if you think about it from a system standpoint, right, you've got the monetary base layer, right, working as it works. And then you've got this huge gaping hole in capital markets that is continually getting sucked out, right? Because the loss of thermodynamics is being sucked through a fake and gay capital markets. And so when you really realize that, and you wrap thermodynamics around our capital markets and the monetary system, like, it bounces around in its own energy field. There's nowhere else for it to go, And so that's why I think it's so contradictory, because the only way you can wrap thermodynamics around the capital markets is if you link it to Bitcoin. Like, there's no other system that will allow that. And so when you keep extrapolating these theories, you have to realize that we have to anchor stuff. Like, we have to scale it. We have to anchor everything to Bitcoin that we want to wrap inside of truth. And, the next natural progression of that is the capital markets. And I don't see any way around that. If I'm missing something there, please, bring it up, because I just see this as that's what we're moving towards. And that's why Trump, that's why Larry Fink, and that's why Saylor, they're all moving towards tokenization, because they realize it. And that's why I think, people get caught up with the just money thing, because, Elon talks about we're not going to need money in the future, and I don't know what that looks like. I'm sure there's going to still be haves and have-nots to some degree, but like, we won't have people on, Medicare, Social Security, like that stuff just going to be free. Like, you're not going to get like a paycheck every month, but you're just going to have services that are free for you. And so it's kind of like a, universal income, UBI, but it's not in the sense that like you can just go access it, but there's no other way to do that. And that's why I think they're really like missing part of their theory, or blows a big hole in his statements, because it leaves that open.
If you want to escape the matrix, you need Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree. And tying it back to the capital markets, because I think that's a piece that it as a foundational principle, right? So Bitcoin, the idea of Bitcoin is sort of a bedrock of truth, right? It enforces physics and thermodynamics, math, on really any system. Specifically how it's going to work from an engineering perspective, like, I think it's difficult for people. I think you can speculate about it, but as far as the capital markets go, I shared what Bitcoin did episode, and Matt Dines. Gee, have you seen this yet? Because I thought, man, that's
Which episode is it?
I think it was from 3 days ago, and Matt Dines is the guest. And
I
at
don't know
about
who that is, I guess.
Yeah, you when you watch it, you might recognize him. This is the first time
Okay.
I've
Well,
seen him either.
it's with the Danny guy, right? That still doesn't understand Bitcoin.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I think, and going back to a comment you just made, I think that Bitcoiners in general, they've made a lot of progress to even be attracted to Bitcoin in the first place. So I think it's all recoverable, but there's always new lessons to be learned, and obviously staying humble is just advisable. So I think a lot of people they learn in different ways, and I think this is going to be a learning experience for a lot of people. I don't think we're going to lose them. I think they'll come around because I think that's how they got here in the first place. So I am optimistic, but I do think there's going to be some pain when like fork around and find out actually is going to have some real weight to it. But Matt Dines talks about the $3 systems because he's actually tying what's happening in the treasury on the treasury side of things and Warsh's involvement. I need to watch it a couple times for it to soak it in, but it starts at about an hour and 52 minutes, and I shared it. Everybody should watch it so we can talk about it next week. But he's basically insinuating like, hey, one of these systems, because there's offshore dollars, a big part of how the system runs, and the reason why you see Brussels and all these European Union and Christine Lagarde and these people that are freaking out over Warsh and is because they're going to lose their ability to essentially print themselves endless US dollars, essentially ride that wave. They're taking advantage of it. They're going to lose that ability, and that there's going to be a repegging, that the dollar is essentially going to be repegged. And ultimately, the path forward and how it's all going to come together, he starts to kind of get into that's going to be where the Bitcoin reserve comes into play. And then, so basically, we'll have dollars, essentially what Nolan talks about, uh, the idea of bimetallism. So we'll have dollars that are essentially directly tied to the Bitcoin um, infrastructure. So pegged, however you want to call it. Again, there's a lot there that I don't know, but he's basically, Matt's coming at it from a completely different angle. And he even mentions the involvement of the military, that of course this is a national security issue. Of course there'd be other people involved besides just Trump, right? And he even talked about, 5D chess. So it's kind of funny because it's just like, you're starting to see that being talked about. It's like, it was like, what's his name the other day talking about, Marty. He was talking about how maybe strategies,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that's the reserve. So it's just funny. These things are converging, right? We're watching them converge. Obviously, we've all speculated about it for a couple years now, but now you're seeing like what I wouldn't say normies, but Bitcoiners that are sort of more closely adjacent to the sort of like narrative layer than, considering the Q post might be real.
Hmm. Right. Now, bringing up about how you said like the network is pretty bare, like not much action's going on with it. Do you think some of that is it seems like a lot of people are starting to use Bitcoin as like a store of value, like more of like a sailor type style, instead of like an actual money. And like, is there obviously retail is cooked from pretty much here on out. Like I don't think much retail is coming in either here on to the future. And so do you have any kind of thought process as far as that goes? Like do you think just people more Bitcoiners now see it as a store of value instead of like
Well, it's
peer to
just kind
peer?
of funny. It's kind of ironic that the people that want to treat Bitcoin just as money don't even use it as money. Like,
Yes, yes.
right? Like, so I don't get it. And so, like, honestly, like the Bitcoin network should actually be a lot larger. Like, the file size, right, should be
Mhm,
well over 1 gig at this point, but it's not. And even that's with a bunch of spam, like, so
mhm,
it was being designed, right, to use and get filled with transactions, which are not happening for the most part. And the people that are quote unquote spamming the network are the only ones paying the miners at this point. So imagine that thing, right? With no spam, nobody paying the miners, nobody using it, nobody building on it. Like, and that's actually the true attack vector, is it being used as gold and a store of value, right?
Hmm.
And people not building on it, because when it like flows to centralization, that's where you end up with more custodians and more trust me bros. And oh, I don't want to hold on to it. Someone else hold on to it. And so, yeah, it's really weird that they don't see that. And it's really weird. And so here's a strong correlation. There's a very strong correlation between the proponents of BIP 110 that don't understand software, that don't think Bitcoin is a weapon system, right? They vote hard and they pay taxes to pedophiles. Like it's all in line with, boomers putting in an HOA association, right? Like it's really like, well, you shouldn't be able to do that because you're storing it on my node. It's like, well, you know what? You don't have to run a node then.
Mhm.
And the network is already less than what it should be with the spam. So what are you talking about? And this isn't like the block size wars where they're actually increasing the block size. They're just allowing data to be stored on Bitcoin in a less harmful way, right? The data will not be stored in UTXOs. The data will be stored through op return, which you can prune out. And that's like, I don't know, it seems like such a very simple, basic argument. Um, and that's why I really think the Fabians are the ones actually pushing this psyop with their, foot on their thumb on the scale to amplify this money. Who Bitcoin just guys? Well, the Luke Dash Jr. guys who was mouthed up, spraying his pizza with, all kinds of different chemicals to make sure there was
Didn't
no
he
COVID on it.
didn't he lose a bunch of his Bitcoin too? Or he got
200, he
hacked or
lost
something?
200 Bitcoin. 200 Bitcoin was hacked because he kept a hot key on his
Mm.
computer. He is working with the FBI. He not only that
Oh, okay.
has said multiple times if his cardinal asked him to do something that was against the ethics of Bitcoin, he would do it. So here's a very, God King religious fanatic. And, the biggest point here is that you have to be adaptable to this. Like, I don't know everything. I can't explain what Bitcoin is. I don't know what the world's going to be like in 100 years, but I know that immutability, right? And, proof of publishing and all these different things are way more important than trying to filter out pictures of Pepe the Frog. And I'm happy to store that stuff on my node, knowing that the cost of it won't be much over the next 10 years because the price of memory chips and stuff is going to be way, way less. And so it's really doesn't make sense to me in any of the arguments. But this is coming from a world where, everything is done in the framework of safety and politeness and let's all get along. Where like no, like this is anarchy, right? This is anarchy framed with sovereignty and freedom. And you don't have to like that, but like you don't get to choose the rules for everybody else at the same time, right? And so a lot of people are going to fuck around and find out, like you said, Crash. And here we are. And I did say this, right? I didn't think it'd be this crazy, though. I did say, like, as Trump pumps more signal into kind of my thesis, right? The noise is going to escalate.
Yeah, the
I
fog
did,
of war is crazy right
I
now.
did not think it was going to escalate to this level, to be honest with you.
50
Um,
million in cold storage?
yeah, that's wild,
Not in
dude.
IBIT, not in IBIT, in cold
Yeah,
storage.
and that's just absolutely wild. And like I said, like, dude, I would probably not be here, dude, if I did not have my thesis and I
Yeah,
did not connect the dots to Q. Like, I don't think I'd be here at this
I
point.
agree
Like, it's it's
100%.
it's that bad. It's that bad.
Only came to Bitcoin just because through Q. So like, yeah, I'm with you 100% on that side.
Well, imagine people that are coming into it now, how confused and scared and put off they'd be by all of it, the price action, all the noise, and meanwhile, really nothing's changed, right? All the fundamentals are the same. If anything, they're stronger.
Welcome, friends! Smash that like button right now. Share this with your whole crew. Catch our weekly Friday roundtables. Subscribe and build the Bitcoin future.
As far as using it, can I pull on that thread a little bit? Maybe now's the
Yeah,
time.
go
I don't
ahead.
want to hog your Adam. Also, you haven't chimed in yet. I don't want to like steamroll, but did want to talk
Okay,
about
man.
using Bitcoin because I've been using it lately, and I wanted to share some of the things I'm using. Gee, you may or may not have been using any of these things, but essentially spending it, using it as like MicroStrategy, right, or strategy. The idea of being able to pay the distributions with Bitcoin without breaking everything. I mean, if it's not money, if it can't be used as money, then what is it? Why have it on your balance sheet, right? Um, so the thing I don't know. I told Krash about the Aqua Wallet capabilities, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understood. Like it's awesome. I love that wallet. It probably is my favorite wallet now. So it uses Liquid, but it uses bolts for the Lightning transaction. So Let me walk you through it like a use case. You can send some Bitcoin via Lightning over to Aqua from River if you just bought it, and you can then you can actually um, peg in and out of layer one all in Aqua. There is a limit of I think up to $25,000 in cuck bucks, but I think that's plenty for now. You can also swap between liquid Bitcoin and liquid Tether. So you can start to imagine the implications there, right? Like if you wanted to keep keep a little, stack that you maybe want to do like trade or something, and you wanted to like sell high and buy low, you could do it in Aqua. You could jump in and out of Tether back and forth to Bitcoin and accumulate more Bitcoin if you're good at that sort of thing. Not my thing, but I'm just saying it's possible. The other thing you could do now, you have integration between Aqua and Bitrefill. So Bitrefill, when you go to create, and you can, without KYC or handing over your information to anybody, you up to $1,000 a week in Visa. You can either get a physical Visa card, debit card. They'll send it to you. It takes like a week to get to you, or you can use digital debit cards that will work with Google and Apple Pay. And so you can basically pay when you go to fill or buy a debit card. It pastes the actual Lightning address, the invoice, directly into Aqua Wallet, and you just say go, and you've got your debit card ready to go, and you can spend. So you can transition.
Which actual debit card is this?
Bitrefill is they offer a Visa card up to $1,000 a week with no KYC, and they have a MasterCard. I think that one's capped at $5, and then they have basically every other gift card you could possibly want: Home Depot, Target, Walmart, whatever. But the Visa one you can use obviously anywhere. So that's kind of like digital, dollars, fiat dollars.
You said this is Aqua Wallet, right?
Yeah. And
okay,
then
I pulled up their Twitter here then on screen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's Samson Mao. That's Adam.
Okay.
Yeah. Samson Mao's a company. So the other thing this week that just got released is Breeze Wallet. They have, and they're offering their SDK, and I think there was a wallet called Brink, so they're using their SDK. They will allow you to sell, like you hold Bitcoin, and you can literally, from the Bitcoin, create stable coins. So they basically are like real-time swapping it. I haven't used that one yet. Breeze has been around for a little while. I haven't personally used it. I actually have used Aqua. And that's basically showing you like you can hold your Bitcoin, you got your savings, and then you chip off what you need if you need to spend. And of course, there's been some speculation, and Cynthia Lummis talked about a de minimis if you even care about that sort of thing. But that's where you can actually use it like money. Now you're not spending native Bitcoin, and you're not using Lightning Network or Liquid. You're literally they're doing, I think, like a near real time swap of whatever amount of Bitcoin you want to spend in dollar terms. And I think they're just doing it that way. And I don't know if they're using Changely or one of those services on the back end. So that one I don't know as much about. The point is, though, those are technologies. Bitcoin can be money, can be used as money, and it should be used as much as possible. And the spend and replace approach, right? That is I know it's hard to do it now when we're at, market lows. It makes me kind of cringe, but that's what happens when you're a maxi and you have no money left. You have to, and you need to buy groceries. You have to spend it. So,
Yeah. Adam, do you want to chime in here, brother?
Yeah, and well, just maybe to back up a little bit regarding kind of, I go back to Mark Cuban saying Bitcoin's lost the plot, but I think the plebes have lost the plot, and Bitcoin is turning out to be bigger than the plebes, but for the plebes. And they just don't understand that it is for them. So like, I think about it more like from a nation state perspective. If a nation starts storing its assets and wealth and energy in Bitcoin and then adopts it as their own stores of wealth, so 156 countries, that's what they do. Now they no longer are stuck in the SWIFT situation where Iran's a perfect example where, I just froze your funds. No, I have Bitcoin, right? So from a nation state perspective, I'm just trying to point out maybe the values larger than a plebe. So like a nation state perspective, they have an untouchable asset, number one, so it's secured. And Salim from Moonshots said something that really just simplified Bitcoin for me. He's like, Bitcoin solved two of the three trifectas. One was cryptology, right? Two was supply. Is there's only a certain amount of supply. The one it did not solve was the speed of transactions. So now, how many freaking stable coins and fake coins, shit coins are there out there trying to solve that piece of it while they're missing the other two? Which puts Bitcoin in that weird place where Krash, like you said, it's more of a store of value. It's more like, hey, I'm using all my shit coins to do transactions, and whatever I make in profit, I'm just going to let it sit in Bitcoin, because like Michael Saylor says, it's a liquid asset. It's not like, hey, I'm putting this money into Manhattan. I'm putting money into Manhattan so that I can hand that off to my kids, 50 years from now, except it's liquid. It can be transferred at any time. Yeah, maybe the transaction is 3 minutes, 10 minutes, just depends on the network. But at that point, then it becomes leverage. And that's what Saylor's doing. He's created leverage out of Bitcoin, which the whole world works off of leverage. So I think it's found its place in the TradFi system or the financial system itself as a store of value. But then you have the debasement trade. Now you have like analysts coming out and saying, well, the debasement trade's dead. Everything's going into AI. And Trump's strengthening the dollar, which he is. Those guys are strengthening the dollar across the world. And how are they doing it? They're securing oil supplies. So energy. Yeah. So we're back to energy again, right? So what stores energy? Bitcoin. But what does energy derive from? A fuel, which we are securing. So I think it's come to a point where Bitcoin is way bigger than the plebs and way bigger than the plebs understand. And that's why the plebs at this point, it's just falling out of their fingers and going to the people that actually know how to use it and what it's for.
Although all of this sounds amazing, this is not financial advice.
Well, that's pretty obvious. I would say, Adam, that we've seen the last couple months is that people only think it's money. Like,
yeah,
how much are you really like studying Bitcoin? Because anyone that studied it for more than 30 hours would probably come up to the conclusion that no, that's way more than just money.
Yeah. Well, so like, I mean, just to add to that a little bit, like Saylor points this out perfectly. It's like, hey, you wouldn't take a mortgage out on your Fifth Avenue apartment to go buy a cup of coffee, right? No, like you essentially want that as like a long-term store of wealth, like as in, hey, everybody buys a house because when they retire, hopefully they can sell their house and help pay for their retirement. Bitcoin is that. And the only difference is it's liquid and it's also finite. So I personally wouldn't buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. I just wouldn't do it. I would feel sick doing it, to be honest with you. But I do understand the situation where people like, well, they saved in Bitcoin and that's all they have left and they have to spend it. But I just don't think that's what it's for.
I think it's going to be interesting to see, because I think it's valuable, right? It stores energy. That's what currency is supposed to do. It can act as that. It can play that role, and it can do other things as well. It can act as collateral. It can potentially be a placeholder for compute, right? Or a proof of work, right? The fact that, hey, I've got some compute to sell you. I don't want to buy your nation's currency for that compute. I want to transact in an actual one-to-one representation of the underlying power. So, and you can understand why that would just that, and without the cybersecurity implications and the potential there, why that would have national security implications. So, but yeah, I hear you on spending it for a cup of coffee, but I do think that, like, think of it differently. Think of it, what I just went through with Aqua And you guys should all download it. By the way, you can also get your own Aqua Lightning address, your static Lightning address, and you can pay for it. And it's
Well, Meta,
whatever.
like
Yeah.
thinking about like from that use case, and I think that's amazing what you were highlighting. It's just the interoperability that's being created right now for Bitcoin, because right now agents are spinning up, they are spending money, and they're spending stable coins, saving in Bitcoin, but they're also going to be transferring Bitcoin for other larger transactions, things like so. Like it has to have that interoperability, but I would say it's considered pristine money, right? So like the tokenization, it's funny, like stable coins. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this concept of like, hey, you'll have a city coin or like a stable coin for Chicago. Like Chicago's going to just institute its own stable coin.
That would definitely be a shit coin.
Well, so right, it's a shit coin. So like people like, so for instance, like the tourist, so the summers when people go to Chicago. Well, people are buying Chicago coin in the winter because no one's spending it. It's at a discount. Right? So that when they want to travel to Chicago, they're getting like a 10%, 20% discount. Like I see stable coins there's going to be those arbitrages, just like, hey, if I go to Costco, I can buy this candy bar cheaper than I can go buy it at the local convenience store. Like there's going to be those types of arbitrages. But whatever profit taking happens, that's going to go into Bitcoin, is how I see it. And then Bitcoin's going to be used for those way larger transactions if there's anything else worth more than Bitcoin at the time. And some people might say, well, the AI trade right now, I'm leveraging Bitcoin to take advantage of the AI trade right now, but I'm not getting rid of Bitcoin.
That's clearly what happened there. I mean, it is the most liquid thing that isn't bolted down that can be sold 24/7 globally. Right. So it's not a surprise that when capital does have to rotate, it's going to probably rotate out of Bitcoin first. And then, of course, that's going to set off the cascade of all the tourists that are holding IBIT in their portfolios and their taxable accounts that don't, oh shit, and they don't have that HODL mentality. For them, they're hunting for dollar yield and dollar growth. So that whole phenomenon, though, I think is just going to dissipate every 4 years. You're going to see it get tighter and tighter and tighter until it is looked at as, the denominator, right? We're measuring things in lots.
Meta, exactly. It's the denominator. And I think like those coffers are going to get full to a certain point to where that S-curve adoption really is like, hey, no, this is like standard knowledge. It's like, hey, my grandfather's standard knowledge was you save money in gold. Like if you wanted a bearer asset, you would just do gold. Well, that's going to be the standard go forward for our next generation. And we're competing with two civilizations clashing with each other, right? The boomer civilization versus the Gen Z civilization. We're all kind of in the middle of this transition. I mean, again, like, it is bigger than the people. And when the people get involved, they don't have the full picture. Like they don't understand what it takes to run a country. They don't understand what it takes to run a financial market. They don't understand the deals that are made behind closed doors and why decisions are made. It's just too big for the plebs. But clearly, the powers that be do understand the power of Bitcoin and what it means strategically. And we can see it with these drops every now and then. It's just like, it's really tough when you're in it and you understand the thesis and you have to just ride out the roller coaster. It's tough. And this is my second bear market, so I'm not as seasoned as some of you guys. But the first one that I went through, which is what, 2022, somewhere around there, was not even nearly. What was it?
The 16K bottom.
Yeah. Like that wasn't even nearly as bad as what it is now. I've never seen this type of vitriol ever.
Like as far as sediment.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. And not only that, just these warring factions like G was talking about, like this, it's just crazy. It's like they're just coming out of the woodwork. Like they were there as like a plan C, like, fuck, if we can't kill this thing, or if we see that this thing is actually going to happen, okay, call out the Luke Dashers of the world.
Yeah. Get as many normies off of it as possible before, I guess, it becomes the thing. That's
Yeah.
like if you're an enemy, that's kind of what you want. Like if you see people like in war, you see 100 people getting away on this car, and you're gonna lose, but there's 100 soldiers over here that is your enemy. You're gonna kill them. You're still gonna
Yeah.
lose the war, but you're gonna kill them. You know what I mean? So
Well, so you guys
it
remember
feels like that.
you remember the thesis like gold will destroy the Fed.
Hmm.
So did you guys see that China is shutting down its paper markets for gold?
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but Meta, what do you think about that?
Well, I still think that I think we've talked about this before, but I still think that there's an incoming there's definitely a gold trade here, and I think it's useful for God, I don't want to say the white hats, but really, I mean, let's be honest, there are white hats. There are people that are working on behalf of, I think, at least opposing the status quo and the current power structure in the central banking cabal. And I think there's the level of, there also, I think there is some collusion here between the forces that are at least for now allies working against them. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that or they think it's stupid, but I think that the reason I think that that's the case is because you can see their fingerprints on the things that they've used to essentially game the system. And everything is based on these paper promises, these, over representation, or, there's 1 ounce of gold and there's 10 claims on that 1 ounce. And that was always their thing. And now we finally are in a place where Bitcoin stops that forever. So it inevitably will win. Now, how it wins, I think there's a way to trade that, the path from now until when Bitcoin ultimately wins. And I think that also can fix the 38 trillion debt problem, although I don't know, maybe that gets fixed by just actual power projection.
Well,
but
so
but that's though I think that's what it's about. And I think that there's also some year-end calls, I believe, of 20,000 an ounce in dollar terms. So that says something. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but you can imagine how a $20,000 an ounce on the U.S. Gold supply, which is priced at $41 an ounce. We've already talked about that, but repricing it to the current price, which is what 4,000 would put it at like around a trillion.
Hmm.
But what does 20,000 do? Right, five
well,
times that.
so you saw the reason why China's doing it, right? Because they're planning on shoring up the yuan. Like
Yeah, right. Yep.
they're pegging the yuan to gold.
Yeah, we're doing a similar thing,
Well,
but
so
I don't think it's just going to be gold.
I just want to throw out some theory here that this may be bifurcating the world so that maybe the United States goes on a digital scarcity side and like more of the communist governments of the world go back to the gold standard
Hmm.
so that there is at least some kind of parity as far as like, okay, your currencies are backed by something. And it's almost like a big global contest to which one's more valuable.
Clearly, gold is not valuable when you put it on in the same game as compute.
Hmm.
I mean, it can help with compute, in that it's got some good qualities as far as being, pretty conductive as far as the energy, the electricity goes. But I mean, from an industrial perspective, it has a role to play there. But
Well,
so
so
I
again, they're going to
ultimately,
have to show
yeah,
reserves. They're going to have to prove
yeah,
their reserves. And
right,
every government on earth understands that they're probably fudging their books as far as what gold they actually hold.
right.
So,
They don't want to devalue what they're on paper, what they have, right? But I
right.
guarantee they have way more than they're saying they have.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all stuff that people have to catch up and learn. And if you've gamed this out and you've thought about any of these things for any length of time, you figured out that Bitcoin is the end game when it comes to money, right? In air quotes. And
Hmm.
so if you're going to have a sovereign nation that actually is rich and wealthy and capable of providing, all of the Because right now, I mean, we're China. If you look at some of I'm not saying there's a lot of propaganda that comes out of China too, but I've seen some pretty impressive examples of, the sort of advancements they've made in their civilization. Meanwhile, here we've got bridges falling apart because we've been being robbed for decades. So that money's all been getting exported, and then there's also been a huge amount of debasement outside and offshore dollars that's been used against us. That's where, the parasites over in Brussels, they can't exist without being able to print U.S. dollars, create U.S. debt. So, and you're seeing all of that get attacked right now. But the gold piece, I think, is part of it because they've used that as a mechanism of the central banking system, and the replacement really is just going to come back down to actual collateral and not these, generated.
Well, it's like they have no option at this point because of how much they've printed. Like you're in a rock and a hard place one way or the other. I mean, even the cent with stable coins and the Clarity Act and Genius Act and all that is essentially so that we can spread debt across borders super easily. So you're going to have to be able to peg that to something. And in a digital world, I don't think gold's going to cut it from the public trust perspective. Like you're going to have to be like any single person on the planet is going to have to be able to go to a ledger and verify, oh, yep, they still have 1.2 million Bitcoin, whatever it may be. And you're
just going to be a lot slower.
Say, hey, we have billions of tons of gold. Well, yeah, show me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to end up that everybody in the world is going to have the ability to choose which currency they want to use, and there's going to only be one currency, and I think it's going to be the U.S. dollar that has a direct peg and connection to the Bitcoin layer 1 network. And I think that is going to be the only way you can know that the dollar you hold has whatever amount of value is expressed at that point in time.
Yeah,
and
I
don't know how long. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take to get there. I mean, but I think that's the end game as far as money goes, and then that's going to be as money loses its importance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
as time goes on.
Too. Yeah, and also too, it's just going to be slower. Anything that's not on verified with the Bitcoin or backed by Bitcoin is going to be slower, and then especially if you add in the other element, the added element of tokenization, then too. So it's going to be an uphill battle. And to your point, Adam, how China seems to be like backing it by gold now, and then obviously like Russia did that too. Once they got kicked off the SWIFT system too. Back when we backed in like the early 1900s or so, when we backed our currency, US, with gold, China went to silver. They did the silver standard, not the gold standard. And they never recovered since they did that. And obviously, we see them obviously still trying to recover to this day. And like that's very interesting. So it seems like China is always going to be like one step behind, if you will. It always seems like that with the gunpowder, with silver and metals, and now even like with gold possibly now. It's like they're like the classic poster boy of like one step behind,
Yeah, they're gonna peg a stable coin to like gold blockchain, right? Well, we're saying that there's this much gold, your currency's pegged to that. It's like
there's never been a dumber fucking idea than a gold stable coin.
It's fucking Peter Schiff, man.
That's
it's crazy.
Yeah. So, Adam, do you want to jump in as far as, because you posted this to the chat yesterday or whenever it was posted by the Department of War, saying that they need these engineers and AI engineers and stuff like that. And then this picture here, the War Force, and a couple people in our Frozen Friends chat was kind of saying they kind of look like miners, if you will, Bitcoin miners. They do. Yeah, please enlighten or elaborate on that.
Well, no, I just saw this, but like this is I don't know. I just always think of like the Manhattan Project with in correlation to AI right now, because I mean, this war force is essentially to go through the entire military ranks, through the entire military system, and basically do a current processing model, like how is everything working, and then do a post process with AI. Um, Honestly, it's fucking terrifying to think like how lethal the United States, fighting force is going to be with that kind of compute power behind it and that reasoning behind it. I mean, it's just going to be an efficient, lethal machine. But I don't think it's just happening there. I think it's happening everywhere. It's happening at even Doge. I mean, nobody hears about Doge anymore, but they had stay behind networks basically going through every single department, division, and going through it with AI and like, hey, do we need this person sitting here to do this job right here? No, we don't. We can automate it. So, I mean, this is obviously a full push to modernize the U.S. government, and not to mention just the U.S. government, but basically the interactions with the public as well. War for, I mean, man, this is like, it's so hard. I don't know how like anybody really could grasp like how large this really is. I mean, like nobody could grasp a nuclear bomb at the time. Yeah, I mean, this could be super terrifying for a lot of people. I mean, like how people are so scared of like data centers and things like that. There's definitely a messaging problem, but when you have like the military coming out and just essentially saying, "Hey, we're going to give you top secret or secret clearance to start working on some major AI projects for defense," I mean, yeah, man,
It doesn't
it's
get much more
real.
blunt
It's
than that.
getting real.
Yeah. Now, Meta, do you have anything you want to, or G on this topic?
I mean, yeah, it just goes to show you like how actually important Sailor really is to this whole thing, and
Mm.
how it's funny that the plebs are now attacking him.
It's
I mean, it's
absolutely
just
ridiculous.
like,
Horrible, horrible.
here's a guy who literally has changed, right, the accounting rules we use. I mean, he's entered into the public company. I mean, without Sailor, this thing doesn't have any wheels. I got to be honest. Without Sailor, this thing's still at
Yep.
5,000 a coin, if that even.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just crazy how compartmentalized this entire operation is. Not that I say I'm right about Sailor. It's just like what else? What other like? It just seems very common sense from a 40,000 foot view. Like you would need someone to push through. It's not going to push through itself. Here's a guy who first purchase coins, $11,111.11. Who's friends with the Trumps for 20 years. Like, he's literally like ex-military, and it's just like, and they're falling for the Jack Cruz psyop. And I'm like, what do you like? There's two ways to go to this, right? Like, either Satoshi is a guy in his freaking mom's basement yelling for the meatloaf, or there's a well-organized, or there's a well-organized plan to bring this thing about with certain individuals. Like, it's very binary to me. It's not gray. It's not nuanced. Like, it's one of the two, man.
Wait,
And
you have logical cohesion? Get out of here.
but that's why, and that's why for me, like, it's such a mind fuck for me, because like I'm not a smart person. Like, I'm not that smart, guys. My IQ is not that high. But like this seems very logical to me, and for me to figure it out and not other people is really strange. Because
Kind of scary as well.
yeah, like I didn't figure out anything special, man. I just kind of like look at a bouncing ball and realize it's probably going to bounce a couple more times, and so to me, it's like a mind fuck on myself because like, I'm not really looking at anything too deeply,
Give yourself a little more credit, though, because I think there's a different kind of IQ that involves pattern recognition and being able to sort of
100%.
apply that logic, right? Like a lot of people will say one thing and then you'll listen to them talk, and then like literally 10 minutes later they're contradicting their. It's like, well, wait, if you believe that first thing, then how the hell do you not? And I wish I could give you a good example. I notice it when it's happening, and it happens way more often than you would expect. But I think you got to really embrace the idea that if Bitcoin is all of these things, right? This incredibly elegant masterpiece of engineering, then how is it not possible that that could also be part of this grander sort of resistance against the power structure as it's been for the last however many decades or hundreds of years, probably? Like, how can you not apply that as a real? And then, if that's the case, then how could you not apply that? It's very likely that this character, who has a very interesting past, and it's a little bit of mystery around Sailor, but there's been some shit coming up lately where people have said, hey, there's a bunch of people on, I think it's the board of strategy. They have all these ties to the intelligence community. When I
Hmm.
heard that, I immediately thought, like, holy shit, is that actually the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve? Is that what it is? Is that the civilian military alliance, or civilian military, aspect of the plan, which is clearly got more credible and tangible as time has gone on, to the point where the White House, its account itself. And yeah, could they be trolling us? Could they be? Could this be one huge humiliation ritual? I don't know.
Meta, meta. It's like the new TA could be, hey, they are the new strategic reserve, and the strategic reserve is supposed to be a million Bitcoin, so we're only 143,000 Bitcoin away.
Hmm.
There's a new TA.
And
Like
But
what
it is
does
it is interesting that like no other big companies have started buying Bitcoin though. Like that's also kind of, and it's also you've got the camouflage of Trump with his shit coins and the
Mhm.
grift off of all his meme coins now that's coming out to the surface. And so it's camouflaged well, right? Meta? Like
Yeah,
so
Yeah,
but then you have a guy like Dr. Jack Cruz who's brilliant, right? The guy is a brain surgeon, right? The guy is absolutely smarter than anybody on the planet. But then he falls for these like very like dumb psyops, And
Mhm.
so, it's
he's a
like
good storyteller too.
he is. And so his bias of his institutional success has like bleeded over where he's so correct about certain things. And then he applies that same logic to something else he thinks he's figured out when
Mhm.
he calls the Q stuff crazy, And it's just like,
Well, I
like,
think it comes down to obviously ego and people just not having the context, and then just obviously not having the experience of past years. Depending how long you're in this, that plays a big part in it, like your awake experience, if you will, I guess. And also too, the Q. Like that kind of goes into ego too. Like people do not want to say that they were wrong about that. I think it's like a lot of different things that people just don't have those attributes to them, or don't want to work on those attributes to be like, yeah, okay, I was wrong, or let me actually look into this. Let me take like 5 hours here or more to dig into what the covfefe dig is or whatever, anything. Just
well,
that
even guys like Puncher though,
confirmation bias.
who literally knows admirals. It's like the admiral told me Q was bullshit, It's like, you think an
it's
active
like,
an active
okay.
admiral is going to reveal any of information if he knows or not? Like that just seems, you're an old pilot. Like, I get that you're friends, but like there's still a military code of conduct where they're not allowed to discuss any of that. So and I don't even think Paparo's part of it, but um, it is kind of funny how he did hook up Jason with him and Jason was going to get left somewhere else, but who knows, right?
Hmm.
Maybe Puncher's running his own psyop on us to that degree.
Keeping
But
an eye on everybody. Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of like I said, it's just
uh,
hilarious how this is playing out at this point. But yeah, it really is weird that I thought people would start piling into Bitcoin from a public perspective in Wall Street after Sailor's been in it for a few years, and it's still like nobody. It's still a ghost town for the most part. But they're attacking Naka, they're attacking, and we're like literally eating our own on the daily. It seems like. I mean, that's just like the
Yeah.
algorithms, I guess I'm seeing,
mhm.
but it seems pretty consistent across the board, right? There's hate for Bailey, there's hate for Saylor, there's hate for Trump. It's just,
It's
um,
it's all based on fiat distortion too. It's not even based on like
yes,
actual reality.
Mhm.
correct, and that's why it's just, yeah, like it's been tough, man. This bear market has been rough. I think just from a psychological perspective of like the fundamentals have never been stronger. The noise has never been right more noisier. And the plan, like we've never been winning from that perspective in a bigger way than we are now. And so
Yeah.
none of it makes sense. And so what does that mean? Like I don't I give, I mean maybe Samson is right with that God candle, and it makes me think like People are going to get caught off guard. They're not going to have time to allocate resources. And who knows, all right? Maybe a 6102 may come into effect, dude. Who knows if Trump freezes like, maybe there's like a soft 6102 where Trump goes, "Hey, in 6 months, if you don't have your Bitcoin off the exchange, I'm freezing it." And so it's almost kind of like, I mean, that's what they did with gold, right? Like
Yeah.
literally before they revalued it, right? They said, if you don't turn in your gold, we're going to fine each individual $10,000, right? So everybody turned their gold in at $20. And what they do after they got all the gold, they revalued it 35. And if history is going to like repeat itself or rhyme, maybe something there's to that. Lori talked about a 6102 attack. And so, I still think of that too, but
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, and there is a benefit, right, to keeping the price, and really nobody gives a shit about Bitcoin right now. If you were going to run that trade that Sailor suggested last year or the year before, where you demonetize the gold, you would demonetize the gold as soon as you revalue it to actually put it to work, right? Then you would demonetize it, and you would essentially then bankrupt anybody. Because what the hell? I said this before, but it's like gold is the last thing you want to be holding, physical gold, when it's after it's been demonetized. Because then it's like, I got to pay to get rid of this heavy ass shit that's worthless. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like it could be that is why, it's playing out like this.
All right. Now, real quick, how much does the White House have, or like the U.S. have in Bitcoin that they seized? Does anyone have the number off the top of their
I
head?
think it was like 300,000 or something, somewhere around there.
I think it's still like
260,
200. I think it's still like
Yeah,
200.
it's two.
Oh,
Okay.
200.
Well, if they would end up doing the strategy deal, that would be over 1 million then. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay,
Yeah.
so TA could
Yeah.
you can't even go off of that TA.
Yeah.
So it could be any
Well, the
moment.
funny thing too is that like most of the Bitcoin is in long-term storage still. There's still over 80% of all the coins are still in long-term holder hands, which is
Yeah.
means that the fiat price is being fluctuated by a very small float. And
So Adam
most of
Livingston
that's
said
paper.
it's what is it, 3 million that trade weekly?
Yeah, roughly 16 million coins, right, are kind of in a long-term hodler accounts. And so,
Mhm.
you figure we're at what? We still got a million coins to go. So 16 million out of 20. Plus, we think, right, maybe 3 to 5 million coins are lost forever,
Right.
technically. So if that's the case, it's even higher. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that is crazy to think about. Like, we are pretty much there, even though like 2140 is a long way off in human years. But as far as Bitcoin, like that's coming up like super close, especially if you got like Seda and Stretch like buying this shit like literally every week, every month at crazy numbers. Like the shit just doesn't
Yeah,
seem to
well,
add
so
up.
like is the volatility right now essentially IBIT? So it's the flows out of IBIT that are really moving the markets.
Well, and from what I gathered from British Hodl here now, he says the ETF holders, the IBIT holders, are actually hodling better than cold storage Bitcoiners. I don't know.
Really?
I didn't verify that, but I heard that's what he
Hmm.
said. But I don't know if anyone else
Well,
can verify that.
probably like the more recent, uh, like the dresses where their average buy price was say above like
Right,
85K
or
or
like the
something.
past
Yeah.
year buyers or whatever,
The
Since
the long-term holders in a
yeah,
lot of the bigger wallets in Wales, they're buying right now and buying like it in huge amounts. Like that is where a lot of the incoming funds are. It's not coming from the inflows from the ETFs.
And that's
So
also kind of like problematic, right? Like that's not what we want.
hmm
Yeah.
And that's why it's, some of this is very confusing
But
inside.
can you, G, then argue if that's the case? Then, like, obviously, the initial plan, if like Bitcoin was supposed to go to more plebs the first 20 years, all right, Plan A is not working. So we got to do something here. Sailor, bro, we got to do something here. Can you make something like Stretch, to kind of like dumb it down for the normal person to be in the Bitcoin system, but not actually hold Bitcoin?
No, that's
To
what I said.
be,
I think I've said it before. Like Stretch is like Plan F, right?
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
plebs aren't getting it. We need to release something else. And then of course
Well,
Stretch dumps to below $80, which was also funny.
Gee,
yeah.
have you given any thought? I asked this question yesterday, but this whole X money thing and the 6% on cash deposits and that, have you? Because I was like, how are they doing that? And like there's a bunch of different people talking about what they're doing. I can't remember what bank it is. I think it's called Coast Bank or something behind them. They've offered their services. It's a fintech back end like Sutton Bank or Robinhood uses Coastal Community Bank. Um, but anyway, it's a 6%, right? You deposit your cash, and I was telling, I think I was talking to Krash about it, maybe
Mhm.
Adam, but I was like, what if they're actually using
Hold and
like
Stretch.
SATA or
Yeah, buy a
Stretch, and it's
Stretch.
like any incoming money, they're basically giving themselves a 6% buffer on Stretch, or of course SATA would be a 7% buffer to balance it, right? To minimize the risk. And then the timing of it now, because Stretch and or Strive and Strategy have both announced that they're not going to be doing things in such a mechanical way as far as issuance of new shares of Stretch and SATA, which then just basically was kind of a flex on the shorts, because if there's not new shares being pushed into the market, then the shorts have to at some point, there's a lot more risk there in shorting them, and it definitely this morning was noticeable. In fact, that's why SATA started to pump again and Stretch pump too, but I can't see the short interest in Robinhood. But it definitely dropped significantly after Matt Cole's announcement that they weren't
Interesting.
going to. So it just seems like all of those things together, like how the hell is Elon managing a 6% rate? And the only way you can get that in the TradFi system is if you go with like corporate bonds, and that seems risky. Unless there's some way that maybe they're doing kind of like what Robinhood does, where they're eating that between the spread between the short-term treasury bills, so like 3%, just to onboard people, and that's why they've got such a limited. They're targeting just their premium users now. But either way, it's interesting because you could see, and X money was supposed to. People were speculating, oh, that's going to be when they roll out Doge, right? And the whole it was going to be basically crypto centric as far as paying people on there and peer-to-peer payments. But it could be that they're starting with the TradFi. It's another sort of blending of those two
Oh,
worlds.
dude, Meta, this is the biggest announcement. You just reminded me of, what was it? MasterCard, Visa, American Express,
Oh yeah, the
OUSD.
yeah.
So like
I'm
think
very
about that
skeptical of
shit,
that.
dude. Think about
Yeah.
that. How much of a threat is that to all the shit coins? Like what the
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
they're
Well,
yeah, they're all thinking like they're gonna be the
it's a
rails. They
threat
just
to
got fucking
USDC.
bypassed like
Did,
completely.
did
Like
you
holy
see what happened
shit.
to Circle's share price when they announced that? It looked like literally. I mean, it was already tanking, but it just like. I mean,
Holy
yeah, Circle's
shit, dude. Yeah.
Circle's toast. The only thing is, I'm real skeptical because like, why you don't need intermediaries or middlemen with this when it's done the proper
No.
way.
And
So
why
why
would
the
you
hell
hand
would
it to somebody
Visa?
else?
Why would Visa and Mastercard be in on this? Like, what's their what are they bringing to the table uh, to be involved in it? That's their whole business model is they make money on transactions. So
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I think are you talking about the Open USD?
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, so that's more of them capturing the yield and not offering it to everybody else. So they built
mm,
that specifically to capture they just it's just like traditional banking. So the reason they're all on board with it is because that will allow them to continue their fraud by capturing all the yield and not offering it to other people. So,
That's a
um,
great point. So is that like basically the banker's answers to
yes, yeah. I mean, because the
yeah.
Clarity Act or the whatever which one it is lets them do that. This other one that has to get signed, I think, to kind of not undo it, but allow us to take I think the chances of that getting signed just plummeted to below 40% recently too.
Yeah,
Oh,
fuck the
Jesus.
Clarity Act. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, so
The
It doesn't
so
even
there's
matter.
definitely a bankers war happening in the background, and so it's just still playing itself out, you
I
know.
saw
this
JP Morgan came out and said that they put a blessing on it with a warning or something.
Yeah, something like that.
the,
But
this is what that Matt Dines at 1 hour and 52 minutes in that YouTube video I shared. That this is what he goes into, and I haven't finished watching it, but this is basically what he's talking about. But as of right now, based on hearing what G just said, so basically Tether still remains undefeated as
yeah,
far as stable coins go,
Yeah.
because at least
Yeah.
Tether has gold and Bitcoin and US Treasury. So like, why would I even why do I care about OpenUSD? I mean, I guess Coinbase has some features here and there that I kind of like. I like the idea that it's there, but I barely use it these days ever since I switched to River.
Mhm.
Well, I would say the only use case for like Visa, MasterCard, and all those, I mean, other than a debit card, is your credit card, right? So if you're transacting any other way, well, fuck, dude, they're gonna touch everything, every single transaction. Holy shit!
yeah. And I mean, acceleration has to happen. So I think there is going to be something. Look, Bitcoin Lightning is already built in to X, right? Like Jack built that
Right.
in years
Yeah.
ago that
Mm-hmm.
nobody still
Oh
talks
yeah,
about.
yeah.
And you can do transactions behind the scenes. And so I bet you Elon built X money on Bitcoin Lightning, believe it or not. I
And
don't think it's been revealed yet. Go ahead.
there's also Ambos or Ambos. That's the um, they offer like the Lightning node. Uh, so basically they can create. They have the serve. I don't know exactly what their role in it is, but they've been talking about dollar, essentially dollar stablecoins on Bitcoin or on Lightning, essentially, and that
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of like the liquid uh, peg
Well,
system
Tether was
that
supposed to have Bitcoin and Lightning too, so there's all kinds of interesting developments happening there.
yeah.
Um, but it would be a major letdown, in my opinion, if it's like Solana or some shit. Because some guy kept trying to say
Yeah,
that like the transaction ID was a Solana one, which there's been no proof of that. But it's also kind of funny that like nothing is leaked yet, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
if
it
it
is
ends up
interesting.
being XRP, I'm out. Just so everybody knows.
That would be funny. But yeah, I think Apple's going to come back in a big way. I think they're going to allow or enable Bitcoin wallets on their phones directly.
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be
I
big.
think
Yeah.
this their 17th version with an orange was kind of like some
That
signal
was
there.
badass. Yeah.
I think Tim Cook,
It-
stepping down is probably, some signal too. Maybe he was, in the way to some degree. I don't know.
yeah,
Um,
the
but yeah.
this Amboss thing, I sent a link over so you guys can check it out. But they offer, and I don't know that I would do this, but they offer, I think, a way for you to, if you have Bitcoin, you can get a yield on it by basically assigning it to a node so it can act as liquidity for the transactions on the node. That's one of the things they do. But then they've got payments, stablecoin payments that are, I think, tied directly to the Bitcoin, and it happens on the Lightning network. So check it out
Okay.
when you guys get a chance. It's interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of things to your point, G. There's a lot of kind of happenings right now that seem kind of like, well, they're redundant, right? But they're obviously we're all going to gravitate toward whatever is the closest to layer one and Bitcoin, as opposed to, some shitcoin network as far as like where we ended up. And maybe that's what maybe there will be like a choice, right, for people to decide which one am I going to use. I would obviously always stay as close to layer one as possible.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Gee,
I do think, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, go ahead. You can finish that
Well, I was
thought.
just gonna say the other part of that is like I think you know, tokenization, they have to come out with that massively too. Like that has to
Mhm.
be a push from the top down, like in a major way. Like someone's gonna have to start buying rare pepes or something. Um, you know, it's like it's got to be pushed. It's got to be centrally pushed because nobody from Bitcoin gets it. And it
Yeah.
would be nice if there was some kind of a major signal before BIP 110. So like, but I think it's too late for that at this point. It seems like, but
Mhm.
yeah, like this all again, the tokenization seems like such an important angle that everybody's still like it's just sitting there like under the iceberg kind of thing.
Hmm.
Nobody realizes it yet. And so, I think the thing is that we're moving as fast as we possibly can at this point, which seems like, you know, molasses, but in
Yes.
reality, it's actually pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I
I
mean, especially
constantly
when you
think, oh, sorry, Crash,
yeah,
go
well,
ahead.
especially when you think real quick, Adam, especially when you think like the last like 1,000+ years, evil people have been in control, and then
Yeah.
like we're trying to do this within, let's just say JFK's time it started, like as an actual like counter force, for what if you want to call it white hats, and that is a very short period. It is moving really fast to that point when you take it
Yeah.
in that kind of a scale. But go ahead,
Yeah,
Adam.
I think back to G's conversation with Quast all the time when we're going through this kind of stuff. I mean, we're at that like mass confusion stage right now. It seems like everybody's confused about everything, whether it's politics, whether it's money, whether
The
it's AI.
fog is so thick.
It's so thick that maybe it's because the big moves are happening right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, and maybe because, people like the boomers. I think the boomers, right? I think a lot of them are out. I think a lot of them sold it. They don't really understand it. Um, Probably
Yeah.
dumping their ETFs and stuff. And so I think, the filter needs to remain strong for the people that are on the other side of this, right? That protect, full permissionless immutability, full sovereignty. Um, because the political stuff doesn't seem to be getting any better. Like, they're blocking Trump's stuff. Like it's still a total proof of stake network that is all based upon theft and lies. And so,
Let me
I
th
think,
let me
go
throw
ahead.
this at you here, G, real quick.
Welcome to the future of finance with Frogs and Friends. Smash that like button right now. Catch our weekly Friday roundtables. Subscribe now and build the Bitcoin future.
If this, like, obviously we all think this is a plan. Bitcoin is the plan or part of the plan. And now, do you think? Obviously, we don't think Bit 110 is going to go through it. We don't even think it has true organic legs. But just say here, for a thought exercise, if this is white hat controlled, push out, rolling out and stuff, if Bitcoin does go the Bit 110 route, then would the white hats, if this is a plan, the white hats wouldn't allow that. Would like that just seems very counteractive to let it up to the plebs if that is the case. But then again, you could argue like Bitcoin is for the people. But then, well, as far as like we think it's soft war and stuff, so like it's not civilian and military. Do you kind of have like your thought on that? Like, do you think it's not even a thought, Bit 110 because like
Here's the thing. Like, I think core is compromised in a way that like
okay.
is more of a positive thing.
Hmm.
And so I think Luke was shown the door from core because they realized what a threat he was, and
Okay.
that he was actually a bigger threat inside of core than outside of core. And look, there's a reason I think Fred Thiel was, pictured with our Secretary of War, and Jason Laurie said, well, I'm sorry, somebody said that if op return proves to be a useful like part of software, that the Department of War will get involved. So
That's right. Yeah, I do
um
remember that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
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 so it's like, okay, well, Fred Thiel, the CEO of Mara and these other miners, uh look, they're not going to be signaling for this stuff. And so at the end of the day, real power is going to trump admin power.
Hmm.
And so like it's a cute, like fancy little fork. Um, but I think ultimately it's going to fail. And like I said, I think we're going to lose some pretty cool Bitcoiners, unfortunately, because they just are so wrapped up in the propaganda they can't adapt, they can't see
Hmm.
beyond money. Um, and this is about more than just money, right? This is, it goes back to that old Benjamin Franklin quote, I think, or Thomas Jefferson, where they said, those who choose to purchase a little temporary safety to give
Mm.
up,
Right.
liberty deserve neither liberty nor safety, right? And that's
Hmm.
that's how I view it. It's like you're afraid of the CSAM argument because you think it's going to be illegal for God Kings to tell you it's illegal to run open source software that at the end of the day doesn't even actually like hold the real CSAM. It's just digits and numbers. And so like you're afraid of just this arbitrary data that someone deems like illegal, and that's that. Like if that was the threat vector for Bitcoin, like it's not what we thought it was, right? Like
Right.
if
Yeah.
someone could just embed some, some nasty stuff online to kill the entire network, like this was never what we thought it was. And
Hmm.
that's what I think a lot of people are realizing is like, well, we never, and even Opti talked about that. Like
Yeah, that was a good
if
episode.
that's
Yeah.
what kills us,
Hmm.
then this isn't what we
Yeah.
thought it was, and that's the terms people got to think about it in. And I think that opens the box for more Qisms and more of that stuff. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming down on both angles. But the Qtards are still wrapped up in their own stuff. They don't get
Yes.
it. It's gotten harder for them.
Now,
Um,
gee, I want to ask you here because you actually talked to Sailor and you are like in the front lines here, like on Twitter, like on Spaces and stuff like that. And we kind of touched on it last week on the roundtable, especially when the sky was falling the last 2 weeks for MSTR and Stretch and shit like that. There was so much like people were calling like Michael Saylor just retarded or like stupid, like literally a scammer and stuff. Like I cannot for the life of me. This is I've never been this upset ever since I've been in Bitcoin. I think. Uh, I Sailor is not dumb. Now, yes, we do have the context of like the Q plan and stuff. We think Sailor is more than just some CEO guy that just found Bitcoin randomly. But like, I don't understand. I guess the hate that Sailor gets because like obviously like if you just even look at the just sheer fundamentals of the balance sheet of strategy anyone, any of the guys on the Bitcoin today space, they're smart enough to look at a balance sheet. They talk about that shit all the time. That's where they came from. I don't understand what is where the disconnect is there. Like they just think, I guess Sailor just a scammer, just that stupid. Like I don't. Can you kind of like elaborate or like get your kind of give us your take on like Sailor is pushing us so far along and people just ain't seeing that like that they just want to talk shit, I guess. I don't know how to kind of frame it in a question, but do you kind of want to grab that there, kind of what you see?
um, Sailor's he's a character, right? Just like Trump.
Hmm.
And so when he changes his, approach on things, like that's part of the adaptability, right? That's where people get caught up. Is like, no, he said he was never going to sell Bitcoin. He's not a maximalist. But like he was doing that like for a reason, right? Maybe it was to rug Wall Street. Maybe Wall Street thought they had an angle that. And so
Hmm.
like, you got to look at Saylor as just as a chess guy. He's part of the chess, he's part of their system. And this is done with such military precision, like it can't fail, right? So like and there's going to be you know different plans that have to move into play if they don't if they've
Yeah, moves and
there's
countermeasures.
always there's always contingency plans, right? And that's
Hmm.
that's what's happening right now. We're seeing a contingency plan play out. And Sailor's playing right along. And so to think that and it's being done in a very smart way to capture them because I think they are loading up on their shorts.
Yeah.
I think they are going to get absolutely rocked on both Bitcoin and the leverages on Stretch, the leverages, So, and I always thought this would lead to an exposure of blowing up the Wall Street system so that the crisis that Saylor brings about the entire system would have to implement new rules of like tokenization, of removing power from the DTCC, all these different things that have to be done if we're going to truly fix these markets. And so maybe Saylor is that guy that eventually cracks Wall Street's secret, right? That cracks the entire network to open it up to show how much fraud is in the inside system. And it's been Bitcoin that collapsed FTX, right? It was Bitcoin that collapsed Celsius. It was Bitcoin ultimately where people trusted institutions to protect their Bitcoin that they didn't have that bankrupted these institutions. And if you think about that, gold never did that, right? Nothing else ever did that. And if you think about the biggest play in the space, well, that's Saylor. And if 1 million Bitcoin and Bitcoin shoots to whatever, it has the potential to absolutely bring down Wall Street, in a way that we've never seen. And who better to implement the changes than a Scott Bessent, a Kevin Warsh, a Donald Trump,
Yeah.
right? Like we have full control in a Bitcoin based and now, like, look, I don't know if it's going to fail. Like maybe it doesn't fail, but how else, can it get exposed? I know tokenization is catching on. But Sailor's he's an actor. And so
Mhm.
you have to kind of have that same frame. I have that same mindset with Elon. I have the same mindset with Trump. So there's certain individuals that, are you trusting every word for word that they say? No, like they're going to give you signal and then they're going to give you counter signal, which isn't intended for you, right? And so um, use your
Yeah.
intuition, I think there. And I think it's a little bit hard because I think the intuition is this is more about intuition than IQ, as probably Meta pointed out earlier. This isn't really an IQ thing. It's more of we have special intuition, whatever that may be, whether it's retardedness or tism, whatever it is. um, we just got the right touch of it. Funny enough, because if you get a little bit too much, you go down the Jack Cruz rabbit hole,
You you
Yeah.
and
you got to be just dumb enough.
you just have to have the special blend of tism to get us to where we're at in the Frogs and Friends, right? Like we have these, whatever it is, maybe it's um, 3.51% or 31.5% of the tism that gets us to where we're at. But that's kind of what I've ultimately just like, rationed out in my brain to kind of make sense of it because I can't make sense of any other way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well put. Um, yeah, it's just that kind of leads me, since we brought up Sailor here, that kind of leads me to what strategy did this past Monday is to reshore that balance sheet and the dividend payout. So they did add 2.55 billion in their USD reserve, and it's just like they did like all kinds of great shit here. They have recommended issuance of the ATM here now of the common. It's just absolutely crazy. Now, Meta, did you want to kind of touch on it? Because I know you posted this first thing when this came out, and obviously you said bears are wrecked, and this is totally like this is attacking bears here, and just butters and doomers. But anything you kind of really want to touch on that is very important here within this
Well,
within this Twitter thread here?
that's the Bitcoin or the strategy structure around the
Yes.
digital
Yeah.
credit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, look, the whole thing was all just you know people that don't know what they're talking about, and it got getting amplified, and the death spiral. It lost its peg. It never had a peg.
Yeah.
That's like I'm not like again I'm not like a financial wizard. I don't have like deep knowledge in how these things all work, but I never thought of stretch as being a guaranteed thing. They would attempt to keep, they want it to trade at par, and they have a mechanism for keeping it below par. And the mechanism that's supposed to keep it close to par is the reward, right, for taking the risk. And really, the whole thing was based on opportunistic short sellers, probably hedge funds that saw a bunch of people that were doing the carry trade that we all talked about doing, and some of us did do, and some got out in
Hmm.
time before they got wrecked, and some held long enough to the point where now you're whole again, or almost whole again. So all of it was bullshit anyway. It was all this big. So that just by putting that announcement out, I will say this: they probably should have done it a lot faster, just to kind of nip the whole op in the bud. But there's a bunch of people thinking, sailors, he's wrecking Bitcoin like that interview that I shared with Joe Consorti and that dude Vinny, whatever his name was, like
Uh,
eating during the interview. And
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
mentality. Like I'm glad he was eating because it's like this is the kind of brain. Not saying that guy maybe he's probably got a lot more money than me and he's probably made some good trades in his life, but he was uh, Sailor's a narcissist. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
really, dude? Are you a clinical psychologist? You're like psychologically profiling this billionaire you think is like, look, man, I just think this was really good. I think what it also did was it kind of created a bit of a lead for Strive to follow. And I think that we're seeing the results of it now. I think the framework only hardens this thing. This whole period of time is going to be looked back on and laughed at, like when Bitcoin dropped to $3,500 during COVID and when it dropped to 15 grand during the FTX debacle. And people are going to be like, well, I should have bought, like it's all of that. And MSTR is going to probably be above $1,000 when during the next bull run. And people are going to be like,
Yeah.
still Peter Schiff is still going to be saying it's going down to 20 grand. And, it's like all the same stupid shit's going to happen in another cycle. But I think this was really good. The way that it was presented, the sort of structure, right? Getting over the whole, inoculating the market. I think, to G's point that people that are, take everything so literally. It's like, I always wanted to hear Sailor. I wanted them to sell. I want them to sell Bitcoin. Why would I not want them to do what I'm doing? The only way Bitcoin works if you go on a full Bitcoin standard is you have to fucking spend it.
Hmm.
It's just that simple. And if you spend Bitcoin that you bought for a lot cheaper at later when it's worth a lot more, that you could call that running a business. It's like they have no cash flows. It's like they have a $55 billion balance sheet. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, their average buy price. It's like that's not how it works. It works over time. So I think there's a lot of really bad takes. And I mean, I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I understand a lot of these things that I see. It frustrates me when I do have it figured out and I hear somebody who's got it wrong and they've got an audience and they're just basically scaring everybody.
Hmm.
So I think it's great for just sort of setting the boundaries. People are still going to bitch about it, still going to whine, it's still going to be scared, and it's fine. Don't buy it. Don't go anywhere near it. But if you believe Bitcoin is what we believe it is, then you believe that Stretch is going to be a good place to keep, like, midterm capital, like whatever. If you have to pay for bills or pay for something 6 months or a year from now, you could possibly keep it there or keep some blend of dollar-like equivalents if you want to play that game. I personally think if you're going to like leverage margin, you want cheap debt, you're still going to use the fiat system to give you benefits, then I think it makes sense. But yeah,
Meta.
I want to
Yeah.
dive into what possible benefit is there to short one of these instruments and have to pay the dividend while you're doing it, other than trying to derail what Sailor's doing.
Well, they get it. Well, yeah, yeah,
or confiscate these shares via margin liquidity.
Yeah. That's all it is, man. It's a trade, right? So if somebody's leveraged and they're using margin and it's going to set off the cascade, which is exactly what happened when it went down into the 70s, the people that are shorting it, they've also got buy orders in. So they're going to ride it back up and they're going to collect the gold.
Yeah. I guess the question is what is the perceivable play? So like, hey, I go out there and I put a short on strike or stretch and, oh, hey, the price collapses. Great. I'm making alpha on the fact that the price is collapsing, but I'm still paying that dividend. Is the arbitrage just that good? Don't you have to like coordinate enough to get it to drop that significantly? Because that's never been done before.
Yeah, to your point, the question is it is very suspicious considering the overarching happenings of what's going on in this silent war that's happening in the main front of it is the financial markets, right? So yeah, is it very possible some of these are actually bad actors that just want to ruin public trust in these digital credit instruments? Because think about how threatening they are to just central banking in general, especially the bigger banks that offer no yield at all.
So thinking about that, and then add to the fact that Bitcoin was also sold off at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it's also, if you go back to the Jeffrey Epstein emails, it's very clear that this is how the Jew makes money. They short the market and they let the goy live in the real world, right? This is a fight for reality. The
Money magic.
The reality is being imposed. The new reality, right, per Admiral Paparo, is one built upon natural law, right? And the Jew lives in a made-up world of fakeness, and that's how they make their money, right? And so that's why they don't have to actually own the shares, right? That's why rehypothecated lending works, because they can keep borrowing the shares without actually owning it. And look, so who are we fighting? Well, it's a good chance we're fighting the exact people that were in the emails that are shorting the markets. And that's why I think, the Iran stuff, the peace and war during, non-trading hours is quite ironic and funny. Who's getting wrecked in those trades? Well, I don't think it's I think it's the people that were meant to get wrecked. So
yeah,
even normie market is picking up on that. Okay, stop the war. Start war after trading's closed. Start before Trump, futures open.
Trump came out and said that like a couple days ago. Yeah, I kind of do that on purpose, to protect you guys. If you have eyes to see it. But Meta, to your earlier point with Stretch, I absolutely knew we were near the bottom here at with Stretch when someone on a Spaces said or compared Stretch to Misty. That was all I needed to hear. That was all I needed to hear right there. And I that's it. That's it. That's all I gotta say right there. But yes, but yeah, we are coming up here almost on 2 hours, I think. So, like, guys, this has been awesome. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Do we want to go around the horn? Adam, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, so our January or July 4th thesis is
Yeah,
to be revealed, whether it's true or not. 3 days.
it's gonna
Yeah,
be a
that's
fun
gonna,
weekend either way, though. It's gonna be a fun weekend,
yeah. So yeah,
but
it's
it
been
could
a
be more fun.
tough 2 weeks, pretty much the opposite of what we were talking about up to July 4th. So we'll see. We still got 3 days.
Yep. Good stuff, man. Gmo, you have anything to end off here?
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate. I think we'll get some signal out of Trump hopefully on July 4th or right before it. And this has always been about a banker's war, not a political battle. And I'm also keeping an eye on 7-Eleven, right? That's the first time Trump tweeted about Bitcoin was 7-Eleven.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's keep those two dates. But we still may be here in misery until October, November, before the capital starts rotating back. And so stack as much as you can at these levels. I don't think we're going to see them for very long, much longer. So I think you got a couple more months left, if that. Yeah, try not to fall for all the emotional FUD, right? Emotional like feelings and stuff about this stuff is where you lose your critical thinking. And I think
Yeah.
trying to separate that's difficult. And I think what we're seeing as a majority in the Bitcoiners is they're letting their emotions dictate their critical thinking. And it's tough, man. Look, the people in psyops, they do this for a living for a reason. And props to them, man, because like I said, I think I'd be out if I didn't have the Q stuff.
A hundred percent.
Being my framework of how this all kind of came together. So, but thanks for having me, boys. These are always fun conversations to go even deeper down the rabbit hole. So thanks
Hell
for
yeah,
keeping
man.
it
Anytime,
alive.
brother. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for joining.
Yeah, gee, thanks for coming on. Always good to have you. I did want to chat with you real quick once we stop recording, and I honestly I've got nothing left. Crash, if you want to
Okay. Yeah.
cut it here.
Basically, I'm kind of with Gmoney. Just keep stacking because in all of Bitcoin's existence, we've only stayed down below, I believe, the 200-day moving average for only like 6% of the whole Bitcoin's life. So, like, yeah, to Gmoney's point, it doesn't stay here long, and it'll be gone before you know it, and you will be regretting not stacking more, if possible. But guys, this has been great. Thanks so much, Meta, G Money, and Adam for joining in here. And guys, let us know in the comments what you are looking forward to this July 4th weekend and next week as well. Uh, but guys, stay out of that collateral damage. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for watching the transition transmission.